First,
Yeah.
welcome everyone joining us today. And my name is Echo Hindoyang. I'm the CEO and the founder of MSQ Ventures. And MSQ Ventures is an advisory firm focused on bringing the better treatment from worldwide to China. So today, I invite Rainer join me, and we are going to talk about their innovative drug developmental progress actually have potential to treat the current sad event, the corona virus. So the COVID-19, um, WHO just gave such a name 2 days ago, really took many people by surprise and quickly spread, infecting many people in China and beyond China, with the number of deaths now exceeding 1,000 worldwide. In addition, it has caused a significant disruption to the economy in China and worldwide. So today we would like to use this opportunity to have the discussion with one of the pioneers in the antiviral therapy space, the CEO and the founder of Atriva and the German biotech company, Dr. Rainer. Dr. Rainer, so do you mind to give a quick introduction about yourself to the audience?
Of course. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Wonderful. So thank you, Hindel. It was very nice, the introduction from you. Yes, my name is Rainer Lichtenberger. I'm a German origin. I'm a pharmacist by training and have gathered a MBA at the London School of Economics. I'm since more than 30 years around in the life science industry, from bench to board. Had been sitting in the on board level for large German and European pharma companies. And since 15 years, I'm running, raising, and founding biotech companies as a serial entrepreneur. Atriva is now the fourth one I'm doing, and is my most beloved baby because with the technology of Atriva, we are really have the potential to change the treatment of serious viral infections for the world, including severe influenza and even potentially including the new coronavirus.
That's great. So where are you now? You are based in Germany, right?
Yeah, we are based in Germany in the beautiful small university town of Tübingen, which is close to Stuttgart. Everybody knows Stuttgart because of the home of Daimler-Benz and Porsche. And this is the European hotbed for infectious diseases. There are famous companies like CureVac and others were spinning out of that and out of the famous School of Microbiology run by Hans-Peter Rammensee. And we are one of those spinouts. So we are based in Tübingen, and everybody who is traveling to Europe and Germany should really pass a visit to Tübingen because it's probably one of the most beautiful medieval towns in Middle Europe.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. And so I know you have traveled to China twice last year for scientific and the partnering conferences to tell people about the comparing story of Atriva. How were those experiences, and do you have a message to the patients and the families and the people of China as they are working so hard and working together to fight this virus infection?
Yeah, first of all, let's please pass my severe and serious feelings to the Chinese people that they are currently have to pass this strong challenge with the coronavirus pandemic infection. Therefore, but the entire world is with you, and we are all doing our maximum to find cures and to raise the cures to help your people and the world. I had a quite answering your questions. I had a very favorable opinion of the quality and the breadth and wealth of Chinese research and development and the strong economy there. I had the chance to travel 3 times in the last half years to China and was most overly impressed by the possibilities science and technology is being offered here by the China's government and the authorities. I'm very much happy also to intensify all my uh, connections and scientific collaborations with any type of Chinese Chinese institution and companies.
Thank you so much for your kind words. And actually, I wanted to share with all the audience, Dr. Rainey does not feel very well today, but he's still joining me because he feels the urgency and to share and deliver such message to this sad event ongoing now. And we know in the past few years, actually, China, especially China biotech and the pharma industry, have been make a lot the presence globally, and so you be part of trying be part of the global biotech community. And but now today, at this very special moment, I think China, actually the global cooperation, and especially for the biotech and the pharma industry sector, how can we work together become more important? How can we fight the virus and save people and keep us and everyone in the world to be safe? So I wanted to say thanks again to Dr. Rainey to take this moment, especially you don't feel well, to join us today. So we know that actually, Dr. Rainey, do you mind give us, because since you're expert of this area, so do you see any the high potential treatment for corona virus is kind of like in the short time?
Yes, what I in general see is that the world is not really well prepared on this new challenge, especially as most of the viral research in the last decades was very much targeted in type of a sniper gun on targeting some existing and viruses very specifically. However, the countering such a threat like a coronavirus or a pandemic influenza, what you got to have there is a type of shotgun, something which is readily available immediately, is relieving the patients coming up with a decent treatment, with an effective treatment. This is what is out of our view and also out of the view of the German authorities, and the meanwhile also of the US or American authorities, required in order to have an immediate counter weapon against such a pandemic threat. This is where in the meanwhile, research and development is changing too in the last 2 to 3 years, and we at Atriva are extremely happy that we are in a favored situation of our technology to be among the first ones offering such a weapon to the world in order to counter those pandemic attacks.
Mm-hmm. So we really hope the treatment and more and more treatment will come up quickly, and so we can have more patients' life to be saved, because the new data come out actually just have the new infected people in Wuhan is about 10,000 people, and it's very shocking. And so actually on the other side, before this coronavirus come out, I did not know actually the flu impact on our like normal life is also very huge. So actually have been killed more people, like itself in US have been killed like 8,000 people in 2019. So what is your perspective and what led you to focus on the flu?
Yeah, our technology is especially suited to tackle severe respiratory infections caused by RNA viruses. RNA viruses, very typical is the flu virus, the various strains of flu virus. But in addition, it's the hantavirus. In addition, it's the so-called respiratory syncytial virus. And it is the coronavirus, and it is viruses like dengue, hemorrhagic fevers like dengue, chikungunya, and even Ebola. And this is where these are all typical viruses which cause typical very severe respiratory infections and diseases where the immune response of the body is overshooting. And this is where our technology has a specific strong bearing. This is why we are focusing currently our research on the severe influenza. This is one of the large uh, the real health threats in the world. In strong seasons like 2 years ago, you had been more than 15 million hospitalizations in the developed world and almost 1 million casualties in the developed world, including China. And this is a real threat which needs to be fight against. And this is where our technology is really kicking in, and we are probably the first one offering a real cure against that.
Yes, and I think based on our conversation last time, and actually you already have the phase one data showed a very strong
Mhm.
potential and
Yeah.
promising. So, do you mind to maybe share more the details about this technology and how the Atriva will deal with this actually very challenging issue with everyone in the world?
I will certainly most happy to do so. And
Yeah, if you
shall
have
I?
anything to present, you can share your screen.
Yeah, I'm just about to do so.
Mhm.
Can you see it?
Not yet.
Mhm.
Maybe it takes seconds. You still from New York City to your city probably takes a long flight.
Yeah, just a moment. Is it now?
Yeah, it works
Yet
now.
now we can see it. Wonderful. Just a moment. So can you now see my starting screen?
Yes.
Yes. So I would like to run you through a short presentation, dear audience, what we call a quantum leap in antiviral therapy. Is our new technology. We are a German biotech, as I already mentioned, founded 3 years ago, 4 years ago, with a strong leadership team, strongly growing. We have, in the meanwhile, passed the 20 employees, so I have to correct my slides here. Our approach is really something pioneering. We are the first one successfully targeting structures in the host cell instead of targeting viral structures in order to fighting viral diseases. And we have employed that successfully in our lead indication, complicated influenza. Complicated means severe hospitalized influenza. And we have in the meanwhile tested strong upsides for coronavirus, hantavirus, RSV, and tropical viruses like dengue or chikungunya. We have managed fast track development and up to now spent 10 million up to date, and we are currently in a fundraising process for 35 million in 2 tranches. From this already committed 10 million by our lead investor Meneldo. This is a Dutch-based venture fund. We expect here with our investments really a very substantial return on investments, and our technology finds already a lot of interest of global and regional partners. Now, of course, very strongly spurred also by the dreadful coronavirus outbreak. Having said that, this is our management team. All of them, the members of them have at least 20 years experience in leadership functions around the globe. Oliver Planz is our scientific founder. He is the inventor of the technologies and is an accomplished expert of the WHO. Sebastian Canisius, the medical leader, has more than 15 years experience in the field of infectious disease. Christian Wallasch used to be the COO of Intercell Valneva, which is a large vaccine play in Europe, and Björn Koch-Lovius had 20 years leadership positions at Roche and Otsuka and Abway. So we've got a strong team to execute on our ambitions. What's the technology around this is the next slide. Our solution is, as we said, we are targeting host cell factors because our scientists, our scientific founders found almost 15 years ago that uh, very many RNA viruses depend on a so-called intracellular signaling pathway, the MEK pathway, to propagate themselves. Our MEK inhibitors we have developed specifically to fight antivirals, they interact with the host cell mediated phosphorylation events and so are able to inhibit viral propagation. And this pathway makes it that our drug is highly active against the various respiratory viruses, including influenza, RSV, dengue, chikungunya, and others. And there is a double mode of action and with dual benefits. And this explains why its unique features are so beneficial if we're fighting severe influenza and other severe infectious diseases. And the sketch and the downside here, the slide shows the activity. If an influenza virus, for example, infects a cell, it enters, dismantles, and then by the genomic information is replicated in the nucleus here. At the wall of the nucleus, the RAF-MEK-ERK kinase is sitting, and the virus is able and needs to activate that cascade in order to make the replication and especially then the export and assembly of genomic information happen in the cell. You see it here, the sketch one virus gets in, many hundreds get out. This all happens within 6 hours. If you employ our drug, then this is efficiently inhibited, it's blocked, and no viral replication and export takes place. Having said that, I mentioned a dual mode of action in addition. This mechanism is not only active, as you see as a so-called benefit one, to inhibit the viral replication, it is also very beneficial to block the so-called overwhelming cytokine response. What happens in addition to the infection with an influenza virus, for example, the cascade I have mentioned, RAS, RAF, MEK, ERK, is also responsible to trigger the immune response of the body against a severe infection. Unfortunately, this immune response is sometimes and very often ill-directed, overshooting, not in the right size, especially if you have elderly patients or patients with concomitant disease like heart disease or lung disease. And this overshooting reaction very often is the cause for the aggravation, for the severity of disease. And with our drug, we have gathered data that you can, as I call it, right size this immune reactors. You can bring it back to the right level in order to support the body to get rid of this disease. And we have proven that in a series of publications in the meanwhile and in our preclinical file that this is the unique feature with the double benefit. Having said that, in the next slide, we decided 2 years ago to focus on the treatment of influenza for hospitalized patients. This is our clinical target profile for the phase 2 study, which we are currently ramping up. As I said, it is a small molecule and so-called non-ATP competitive kinase inhibitor. This is very important that it's non-ATP competitive because then it has only minimal off-target or side effects. We are focusing of the treatment of influenza for hospitalized patients with the so-called complicated influenza. This is the one where you're getting pneumonia, where you're feeling very bad and have high fever and all these complications. We are in clinical development. We are entering phase 2 development. Our target dose we are currently employing is between 600 and 900 milligram. We have an oral treatment, once daily tablet for 5 days. And we are treating our patients so-called on top of standard of care. Standard of care in this case is the well-known drug Tamiflu, because in these patient group, Tamiflu is not working anymore, is not licensed anymore, and is not working. In our study, we are able to demonstrate, will be able to demonstrate that our drug works even with those patients which are not anymore susceptible to a Tamiflu treatment. We know that this treatment, our position is supported by the following facts. We have entertained a phase 1 study with no relevant side effects. The preclinical data set is complete, and we have a real fast onset on action. There's no liability, and we have a short treatment regimen. And we will be targeting on the reduced time to alleviation of influenza signs and symptoms, and we allow for a treatment window up to 120 hours after onset of symptoms, which no other treatment is currently able to hold that promise. For example, baloxavir or Tamiflu only allow for 48 hours after onset of symptoms. And we are also looking on all other relevant endpoints for this severe disease. Before, in the next slide, I would shortly share with you our excellent data from our phase 1 results. This was a study with 70 healthy volunteers run in Europe with a multi-ethnical population. The objectives had been to evaluate the safety and tolerability of our drug given once daily for 7 days, and to evaluate the pharmacokinetics of that drug for 7 days. And we had developed an exploratory biomarker which measures the phosphorylation of ERG, which is the downstream kinase of MEK, to potentially support the phase 2 dose selection. And all of those objectives had been fully accomplished. We had an excellent safety and tolerability results up to 900 milligram over 7 days. We had a wonderful once daily pharmacokinetic, and we could establish efficacy for doses above 550 milligram per day, so fully supporting our promise. With that encouraging data, we went to the European authorities on last October, and they fully supported our conclusions out of that study. They acknowledged that our drug would be safe up to and including 900 milligram per day over 7 days. And they proposed and endorsed for us a 2-step clinical strategy for influenza. First of all, phase 2A study where we would open to space a human proof of concept study in complicated influenza, and then a confirmatory phase 2B study where we confirm those. And the big advantage of that strategy is that phase 2B study could already seen as a pivotal study if successful. Pivotal means already usable for a conditional approval. Then we would only have to pass one phase 3 study before we would get a marketing authorization. And in Europe, we would probably get already marketing authorization by parallel running the phase 3 study. They were extremely encouraged by our data. And this we did really see as a straightforward clinical strategy to minimize the risks, money, and time to success. Having said that, we are planning similar scientific advices for the FDA and the CFDA in China in the second quarter of 2020, because we are running all of our clinical study always as global clinical studies, employing it in all territories, in all major territories. This is, in the next slide, I'm depicting our clinical strategy, which we see as time and money saving. As I mentioned, we are currently ramping up our phase 2A study in one dose, 900 milligram versus placebo. We are looking for one minimal, maximally 2 flu seasons. This will be then, we will be having a top line proof of concept mid of 2021. And this one will be followed with a large multinational global phase 2B study where we are targeting 2 to 3 flu seasons. And flu seasons always means Northern Hemisphere and Southern Hemisphere, because we cannot afford not using all flu seasons you have on the global. So we will expecting a top line efficacy and the potential of conditional approval already in 2.5 years from now, 3 years from now. And we are currently ramping up our financing in order to finance these 2 studies plus our pipeline. Having that results is what then would have really the first real active treatment for severe flu at hand. But this is not the only project we are currently running. In the next slide, you see our pipeline. As I already, this is the, let's say, our activities for the influenza virus. Then we are currently working on the hantavirus, which is a rare disease, but nevertheless in China you have up to 150,000 cases a year, a very severe disease where with a lot of casualties, up to 20%, where we have now preparing a submission for an orphan drug designation, United States and Europe. We have excellent preclinical data where, in addition, we have excellent new data of the activity of our drug for the COPD exacerbation caused by viruses. Again, this is a very intriguing project. We're hoping to enter here phase 2A development by 2022. I mentioned already our activities for other virus infection, mainly tropical viruses, and most importantly, also we have building a new pipeline of proprietary kinase inhibitor, and currently ramping up our activity in order to generate a full platform of new compounds. As I said, this is being financed by our venture round we are currently collecting. The market, you may know, this is really a huge market here. Influenza, we have up to 650 million death tolls, mainly to pneumonia and other. This is the higher global death toll, unfortunately, of all infectious disease worldwide. And at risk, especially the elderly and those with chronically diseased lung and heart failure. The vaccination, as you may know, is unfortunately very insufficient, must be developed annually, and very often you are encountered by a mismatch of the vaccination efficacy. For example, 2 years ago, only 25% of the populations were effectively protected against the virus strain. And having said that, also the antivirals are really not living up to our expectations currently in the market. We have a strong risk of resistance development, and you got a limited therapeutic time window. And all of them are not licensed for severe influenza, at least not in Europe, rest of the world, and United States. Our technology is strongly protected by a strong platform of patents, in 9 patents family we have gathered up to now, which broadly protects our lead compound and protect the medical use of any MEK-inhibitors as an antiviral alone or in combinations. This includes Chinese patents, US patents, and will give us an exclusivity up to 2038. So in a summary, in a bottom line, we, as a German biotech company coming from the microbiology hotbed Tübingen with a seasoned team, our lead compound ATR02 is a game-changing asset, first in class for respiratory and hemorrhagic infections. We got a clean preclinical and phase 1 package. We are heading for complicated influenza, superiority to standard of care. Phase 1 got an excellent readout in PK and safety and a strong clinical plan ramping up. This is no wonder, in partnering discussions with many big pharmas, including and also important European and US American public and governmental agencies, and also the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundations has started negotiations with us for the severe tropical diseases. This is the markets we are targeting are quite substantial and really worth investing, besides the ability to help the world with new medications. And from a financial point of view, we are currently ramping up, as I said, our venture round, which shall enable us in the next two milestones to run our clinical studies on influenza and also entertain our pipeline, including hantavirus, COPD exacerbation, and also our very newest activities around the coronavirus in order also to hit with those clinical development as soon as possible. And I'm, in this respect, thanking you for attention, and I'm of course very happy to entertain all type of questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rainer. And so I noticed you just mentioned about the ATR-002 is already in the potential go to the pivotal conditional approval. And so how long do you think once if they go through that pathway, how long will it take? How many patients will request for that clinical trial?
Yeah, actually, the first two we plan two phase 2 studies. This will be a total of about 400 patients, about 100 in the first phase 2A study, which is the proof of concept study, about 300 in the phase 2B study. This will, from a study conduct point of view, take 2.5 to 3 years. This very much depends on the severity and the accessibility of the flu seasons. In order to develop it as rapidly as possible, we are employing the flu seasons in the northern and in the southern hemisphere. So we are starting the next flu season in the northern hemisphere, then switch to Australia and Latin America, go back to China and Europe and United States. Is certainly a massive exercise for a clinical team, but we have compiled a very experienced clinic team with previous experience. We expect the let's say the approval for conditional approval between 2023 and 2024, depending on the approval process. And then in parallel, we would be running the phase 3 study, only one study with between 500 and 600 patients, probably 600 patients. According to the opinion of the European authorities, this still needs to be confirmed with the US, American, and the Chinese authorities, how many patients they would require.
That's great. Congratulations on that. So there's a audience wanted to have the question, so I will allow him to or her to talk to directly. Hi, Junning.
Yes.
Hi, Jun. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Yes. This is Junning Li from Lexing Farm in Suzhou. I want to ask you, is this a small molecule or large one?
This is a small molecule. It's a new chemical entity. It is a kinase inhibitor, a MEK-1/2 inhibitor.
Yes. Do you have currently, I assume you use CRO to manufacture the drug product and the drug substance, correct?
We are currently using a well-reputed European CRO for the drug substance, including the phase 2 provision. This is, and we are also using a CRO, a German CRO, to manufacture the tablets.
Yes, since yours oral tablets, have you considered nebulized inhalation form of your drug product?
In principle, this is possible. Having said that, we out of our preclinical studies we did comparing both application forms, we would foresee that the oral application would even be superior than the inhalation because out of two reasons. First of all, if you got a severe influenza, or then you very often have a type of a strong inflammation in the lung tissue and also mucosa developing, and this is not very well suited to distribute the drug to the cells per se. In contrast to that, the distribution from the blood circulation is very rapid to the lung cells. So we found from our preclinical studies that an oral treatment would be superior to an inhalation treatment.
But you don't have data to prove, right? So for the
Yeah.
lung, it's a local delivery. Is less systemic exposure. Perhaps you can increase your dose a little bit larger.
Yeah, certainly. But there is in the lung there is a natural limit of let's say delivering drug into it. It is difficult, for example, to deliver doses which would go beyond 500 to 500 milligram. All you would have to deliver it very long with a nebulizer, which is then quite inconvenient. So we feel that as the absorption of the drug is very rapid, the side effect profile is very favorable. We actually didn't see any side effects which were related to the drug up to 1 gram, as I mentioned. So we currently feel that the oral treatment is the most appropriate one. Having said that, we are of course open to test other ways of treatment. For example, for the hantavirus, we are developing an IV treatment for those cases where you are in the ICU and have intubation. For those, you need an IV treatment because the patients cannot swallow tablets anymore.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
What is the mechanism for the COPD indication?
The mechanism of the COPD is, it is in the meanwhile well established by literature that, including our own publications, that viruses play a vital role, especially RSV, influenza virus, rhinovirus, and metapneumovirus for the so-called exacerbation of the COPD. About 80 to 90% of the severe exacerbations are caused by an a viral infection, which and we have very encouraging and compelling data out of our animal models that we clearly can make a difference by applying our drug in COPD patients when an exacerbation is starting, to cut that off and to improve on the symptoms, especially the airway symptoms and also the general anti-inflammatory properties of the drug are very beneficial of that. This is still preclinical data, but we see it as encouraging enough in order to build an own project on it.
Thanks, Dr. Rainer, for answering the question. Thanks to the Jingyi for the questions. So if you have more questions, we can connect you with Dr. Rainer later.
I'm happy to do so. Yeah.
Because of the constraint of the time, so we want to save some time for other questions as well. So there is question from the audience is they want to understand what is the thinking behind the using a pathway that is typically used for the cancer therapy for the viruses like flu. What are the unique advantage of this approach?
Is that question directed to me?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, because actually, this pathway, as you mentioned, it had been originally developed for cancer treatment. The unique advantage here is this pathway is used with all tissue dividing. If you have growing cells in the body, then always this pathway has to be activated. Otherwise, you won't have growing tissues in our bodies in mammalians. RNA viruses have learned during evolution to abuse this pathway in order to make themselves replicate and propagate. This pathway is very silent in an adult body, for example, the lung tissue. There is no activity on that pathway. If an influenza virus enters a lung cell, a lung lining cell, it activates that pathway only for a few hours in order in its to make its infection cycle happen and make its replication of its genomic information happen. If you block that with kinase inhibitors, you can very efficiently block these replications, and you can also downsize, right size the immune answer of the body. You may ask, is this not a dangerous thing to use cancer drug? Actually, it isn't, because these cancer drug, you only got dividing tissue in the adult body in the gut on the skin. And in both cases, the side effects only kick in after several weeks of therapy in very, very high doses, as it's been done in the cancer therapy. In our case, we only got 5 days of therapy in doses much lower than being used in cancer therapy. So we don't expect any side effects, and we didn't see it yet in our clinical study.
Mm-hmm. That's that's a really wonderful, and that's a very unique finding from this pathway. So also the next question from audience is the various behaviors very differently in animals than humans. So what gives you the confidence to move forward in humans, and what challenge do you have to overcome in designing clinical trials?
Yeah, actually, the pathway of the RAF-MEK activation is, in contrast to many other pathways, a very conservative pathway. It's conserved on all mammalians. So the kinase looks really almost identical if you look into the mouse or into the dog or into humans. So we can very nicely show in our preclinical studies that the activation threshold is always the same. If you activate it in the mouse, you activate it with the very same blood levels when in the dog, when in human. This gives us a strong certainty that our activity levels we see in the mice or in other mammalians, we will see in the human body as well. And so this gives us the strong hope that we will enter up with an efficacious drug. The challenges in our clinical studies are certainly those to ramp it up in a proper way, to select patients which are really rated as severe influenza patients. We got to manage it in the leading hospitals all over the world in order to not to blur the clinical studies with patients who should not have been included. Our team is quite experienced in setting up those type of studies. We have at least 2 previous global experiences in the last 5 years. So we are looking very much forward to counter that challenge, and we also looking forward to keep our timelines in running those studies out of the previous experience we got.
Yeah, so in short, is that leading hospital and also your experienced team is the guarantee, are the guarantees for their successful clinical trials, yeah. Right? And so you, from your presentation, you mentioned that actually you're made in the discussion with the Chinese FDA, will be have conduct such conversation in the spring 2020. So what's your global clinical trial strategy, under especially what's your plan to run the trials in China?
Yeah, we as you have seen out of my presentation, we in the near future we got to manage 2 clinical trials. We certainly, our aspiration is to run both clinical trials partly in China, especially the second trial, the phase 2b dose confirmation trial, should certainly have a very strong Chinese element, being the largest market, the largest country in the world. So it goes without saying that we got to have Chinese patients in our trial. We would like to approach the Chinese authorities early in order to make them aware on our program, receive their advice on what we should still add to our protocols, how we would deal with this the special circumstances by using Chinese patients, and also get all other valuable and precious advice from them in order to optimize our protocols. This is why we would like to enter discussions with them early.
That's very exciting news. So I take a last question. In terms of doing the clinical trial in China, do you plan to do by Atriva yourself, or are you looking for a partner in China to work together?
Yeah, we are very much open and would like to have an early partnering with large and capable Chinese companies. The value are imminent for both sides. For us, we can really extend our reach. We can benefit on the local experiences of running clinical trials in China, which we don't have up to now in our team. And in addition, we can build up early favorable relationships to potential partners later on in the marketplace. So and for the partner, of course, it's the advantage to have an early access to the drug, gaining early experience with the drug, and also we're running both in parallel and joining forces in order to build a global file as rapidly as possible.
Mm-hmm. That definitely is the right time to find a partner in China to conduct the clinical trial in China now. Actually, even the China government already launched the special fund and the fast track of their any treatment for the coronavirus. So I just take the last question for you. And so are you going to do any dedicated clinical trial for the coronavirus? I think we had such a discussion. So what's your plan?
What we are currently doing is we are within the next 2 or 3 weeks, will have confirmation that our drug will work against the new coronavirus strain identified. We have already gotten hold on the strain in Germany. You may know we have a few patients here in Germany, and we had a chance already to get hold on the virus. We need to propagate it, and then we will test our drug in the preclinical models. Having said that, and we expect our drug being active against corona because we have the previous experience with the SARS virus and with the MERS virus, where a predecessor compound of ours did work nicely. So we strongly expect that we see the same efficacy. Then we certainly would like to approach the authorities in order to discuss if we could have a fast track starting into clinical development, because we got this favorable phase 1 data, and in order to really openly discuss with the Chinese authorities what to do in order to get an early access of the drug to the Chinese population in order to help overcoming this serious health threat.
Definitely. And also I think the audience today actually are very eagerly to learn more and to figure out how can we work together to deliver such a treatment to all the patients. So thank you so much. Before we end our webinar today, do you have anything else you want to share with the audience?
Yeah. Again, my very best feelings is with the Chinese people and the entire world is standing together with you in order to fight this serious health threat. And if our technology, if Atriva can have a role and help overcoming that, we are the first ones certainly being happy to do that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, and also congratulations on all the milestones you and your team made so far, and also the exciting news about the treatment for the coronavirus. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So thanks everyone joining us today. And so we know the coronavirus is a huge impact in China, but actually it's also a global issue. So we're really looking forward to more the global cooperation between the Western biotech company and the Chinese biotech company to develop more innovative drugs for the global patients. Thanks again for joining us today. Have a good one.